Hi everybody and welcome to Azure Flash News. This is a special edition demo episode. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rick Weinberg and I am one of the co-hosts for the Azure Flash News I guess podcast or vlog or whatever you want to call it that we host on YouTube and other platforms. What I'm going to do today is I'd like to walk you through implementing a scenario where you're able to update configuration settings for an application without having to restart the app. So for example, let's say you have a situation where your performance is bad or there's some very weird behavior with your application and you don't know why. Well, traditionally, if you had an Azure web app or a function or something hosted in an app service plan, you might go in and make a change to the web.config file. And then, of course, you're going to restart the app, right? Because it's got to restart it to make changes take effect. Well, with the Azure App Configuration Service, you don't have to do that anymore. There's some cool capabilities that allow you to cache configuration settings for a while and periodically check based on the amount of time, the time increment that you give to basically vacate the cache or to expire the cache, and actually retrieve information. So if you are in a scenario where you want to maybe toggle a feature flag, or if you want to maybe change your log settings, but you don't want to restart the application, you can do this. Now, of course, you can do this with other technologies, right? You could store the settings in Redis cache. You could store the settings, say, for example, in a database, and it may still work similarly. The nice thing about Azure App Configuration is that it's very complementary to Azure Key Vault. Okay, so with Azure Key Vault, you can actually tie into, you can store your keys and secrets in Key Vault, and you can actually add Azure Key Vault, I'll call them name value key pairs with value obfuscated, or you can actually use Key Vault independent, but so they can complement each other. So today I'm going to focus though just on app configuration. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you, and this is based on sample code that is provided, and I will provide a URL at the end of the demo so that if you'd like to deploy it yourself, you certainly can. So let's bring up my Visual Studio instance, and what you see is basically a function. So I went ahead and created a new function app in Visual Studio, and you'll see a few new kind of capabilities here. Some new I'll say new lines of code that may not look familiar. Okay, so in this particular case, what I've done is I've created a static constructor for function 1. Whoops, sorry about that. So I have a static constructor for function 1, and I've got a configuration builder. So what this does is this actually sets the configuration and sets the configuration options specifically for your configuration setter getter, or I'll call it in this case setter, right? So what we do is we have some options. We do a connect, and clearly you can see there's an endpoint with basically a connection string in there. But more importantly, you can see the refresh option. So there's a configure refresh with refresh options. And in this particular case, I'm actually looking for a particular entry in the Azure App Configuration called test app :settings :message. I'll get to some of the different constructs there in a second in terms of how you can store these key value pairs, but for now that's what it's doing. And then you can also see here set cache expiration basically for 5 seconds. And of course you're not going to do that in production. I simply did it in this situation so that we can demonstrate the dynamic nature of being able to change these settings and show them, have them be reflected with this Azure function. Okay, so once this configuration refresher has been configured, it basically goes into the builder, the configuration builder, and that becomes your configuration, right? So you can see then as I scroll down, you've got the configuration refresher, which we set the options for the refresher, and we do a try refresh async, right? So the reason I'm doing that before I run this function is what it's going to do is it's going to look at what it's cached locally, and it's also going to look at the expiration. And if it is in fact expired, it's actually going to refresh the configuration settings. And if it's not expired, it's just going to grab it and move on, or it's just going to leave it be, right? So down below, what's important is you can see there's a string key name, which again matches this key up here. And of course, if I were a good developer, that would not be hard-coded there. But then what it does is it goes into the configuration and looks for a value based on that key name. Okay, so in this particular case, you're seeing it's retrieving a message from the configuration name value key pair called from the key name. So if I go ahead and change this a little bit, so we go to the browser, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is, so I've already pre-provisioned a resource group. It's called Dynamic App Config. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the Azure App whoops, pardon my weird P's. I'll just do this, sorry. App Config. And there it shows up. You can see App Configuration. And I'm going to go ahead and create it. So I typically like to do my deployments in EastUS2 for some reason. I'm going to call this Rick Dynamic Config. Whoops, config. All right, and I'm going to put it in EastUS2. Now, in this particular case, because it's just a demo, I am going to use the free version from the pricing tier. There are some differences, and if you're curious, you can always click on the View Full Pricing Details, and that'll tell you what the difference is. Mostly it's around the size of the cache or the size of the data that you can keep in the cache, as well as the number of requests that you can make to the service. Okay, so that's a lot of it's really, you know, a nickel a pickle kind of thing, right? So I'm just going to go with the free version for demo purposes. So next I'm going to go ahead and click Review and Create. And this is going to provision into my resource group an instance of this app configuration service. So you can see it's being created. All right, so it's done. Voila. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to click into the Configuration Explorer. Okay. And now you can see there's nothing here. You see a key, a value, a label. You can apply labels. So if you wanted to differentiate based on a label or search by label, there's different things that you can use that for. But interestingly enough, you can see I can create a key value or I can create a key vault reference. Okay, the key vault reference is obviously going to be giving me the ability to not store sensitive information directly in the service. It's going to be a pointer to something that I would retrieve under the context of like a managed service identity from the Azure Key Vault at runtime. So in this case, I'm just going to use the key value. Okay, so I'm going to create a key value pair. So I'm going to call this test app : settings. Well, I better be sure if I look at my application that, yep, test app settings message. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned, this is based off of the demo application. So just wanted to not have a mismatch in the type. So we've got the test app and we've got settings and it's called message. Whoops. And I'm just going to give it the old hello, whoops, hello world value. Duh. I can't type today, it's Friday, sorry. I'm not going to apply a label. I certainly could, but I'm not going to apply a label. And content type, that's we're going to leave that be for now. So I'm going to click apply, right? And now I've got I have a key value pair. And of course you can see it's hidden by default, right? So now what I need to do though is I need to get my access keys because I need to be able to reference this, right? So I've got a primary key, secondary, just like we do with all of our other services, a secret, so that we can rotate them. We can, you know, obviously, so that we can do different things with them. And then of course, if you're going to use key vault, identity becomes really important. You know, are you going to assign a system assigned identity? You're going to have to grant it access to key vault, etc. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. I'm just going to go back to the access key. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my connection string, my primary, and I copied that. Okay. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Visual Studio. Okay. And I need to update my connection string. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type into here and I'm going to do a V. Okay, so now I've got a new endpoint. I've got test app settings message. Okay, and the trigger for this particular function is actually just a straight up HTTP trigger. So technically I can run this just by making an HTTP endpoint call. And also the fun thing, of course, about Azure Functions is I can test this locally. So if I did everything right, I should be able to click run. the console, the emulator is going to come up, the browser should pop up, and I should see Hello World. And I apologize, the CLI, downloading the Azure CLI function stuff, apparently there's been an update, and now the console app is running, of course. So I've got this console, and this is going to launch a new browser. So allow access. So what you don't see on screen, of course, is I've got the emulator running. I've got basically all this stuff coming up. So now what I want to do is I'm going to copy the actual function URL, okay, Control C. And now we're going to, of course, show our beautiful browser again. And I'm going to go into a new tab. So I'm going to go right here. Come on. Whoop. I do that all the time. I got to get so used to that. Okay, paste. Boom. And go. Oh, wow, that was fun. Why did it give me search results? There we go. Hello World. Okay, so it's pulling the Hello World value from the Azure App Configuration store in the cloud. Okay, so now if I go back though, and if I go to my Configuration Explorer, and now let's say I want to change that. So let's say I need to test, let's say this is a feature flag or whatever it is, or maybe we're having a sale on hot dogs, and I want the main text on my landing page to be, "Hello World, we have hot dogs for sale." Let's let's do that. Okay, so hello world, we have hot dogs for sale today. Apply. Awesome. So that's been updated. So if you remember the configuration, the cache, if we pop back to the old if we pop back to the Visual Studio for a second, you get 5 seconds. So you can see set cache expiration 5 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to bring the browser back up, and we are going to go back here, and I'm going to refresh this page, and now you can see hello world, we have hot dogs for sale today. So literally it's literally just that simple to actually create a centralized, secure, scalable, performant application configuration spot to consolidate all your configuration. Now, the other benefit, of course, of this is you may share configuration across applications. Let's say you have a suite of products and you want to, for example, literally enable a feature across the board. Let's say there's a certain feature that transcends multiple products within your suite of products. Absolutely, you go in here, you change that, all your apps reference this app configuration service, and voila, they all just show up. So yeah, I mean, literally, it was just that simple. So if I go back into the Visual Studio, of course, you can see, I mean, all I had to do was add some code to the constructor. So I'll go ahead and shut this down now. There we go. You can see I just added this configuration builder code to the constructor from my from my function constructor. Sorry, it's been a while. And then I put in this code. So once that's done, all I did was I said try refresh async, right? So once it does that, and like I said, if the cache is not expired, it'll just go ahead and step out of that code. And now I can get the new updated key name. So super simple. If you haven't looked at it, I absolutely recommend it. The other thing I will show you is if I go ahead and enable my browser again, there is an absolutely getting started, quick start guide for doing this. Okay, so if you look at, I've got docs.microsoft.com, ENUS Azure-app-configuration/quickstart-azure-functions-C#. I will go ahead and make sure that is part of the, I'll put that link in the documentation specifically for the YouTube video so that you have it. But yeah, it's literally that simple. And like I said, the nice thing about it is there is flexibility with Azure Key Vault. There's flexibility with labels. There's flexibility with a bunch of different ways in using this. And I really think that this is an appropriate way to go by abstracting a lot of these settings specifically from your applications. From a security perspective, but also from, like I said, you should not have to redeploy your application just because your configuration changed. So I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. I always love spending time with the Azure Flash News audience. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate it. And more importantly, we always appreciate comments. Any comments are welcome, opportunities for improvement. Hey, I love this. And oh, by the way, I have just recently ordered some swag again for Azure Flash News. I've got some magnets and some other things coming. So by all means, please make sure you're a recognized subscriber out there, because sometimes we do giveaways. So yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate the fact that you gave me your time today, or whatever, whenever it is watching this video. And of course, per my usual sign off, keep your fingers on your sanitized keyboard, keep your face masked, and keep your head in the clouds. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.